The first thing I heard that Sunday morning was the unmistakable roar of a chainsaw, ripping through wood like it had a grudge. I stepped out onto my porch with my coffee, still half asleep, only to see a woman I'd never met tearing through my back fence with more confidence than sense. She wore a glittery sash that said, HOA Chairwoman, and a neon visor that looked like it came from a 90s garage sale. I blinked, wondering if I was still dreaming. But no, she waved at me like I was the one trespassing. I live on the outskirts of Ashton Hollow, a peaceful pocket of county land just beyond the border of a sprawling suburban development called Maplewood Pines. My property is legally outside their HOA jurisdiction, buffered by old growth trees and a little creek. I bought the land years ago for its peace and privacy. What I didn't expect was for that privacy to be shattered by a woman who believed my backyard was fair game for her community expansion plans. She introduced herself as Cheryl Morganson, self-appointed leader of the Maplewood Phase 4 Expansion Council. Apparently, since her HOA had maxed out their green space, she decided that the unused area behind my fence, my private land, was up for spiritual reclamation. She marched onto my lawn, dragging two barking Pomeranians, a lawn chair, a camping toilet, and a laminated poster that read, "Future Site of Serenity Grove." I told her to stop, calmly. At first, explained this was private property. She waved me off and said, "This land wants to be shared." The newsletter was very clear. I asked what newsletter she was talking about, and she said she had dropped off notices to nearby stakeholders. I checked my mailbox later, nothing, but that didn't stop her. She took a selfie in front of my barn with a caption that read, "Phase 4 launch begins today." That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with a normal trespasser. Cheryl wasn't just confused. She was determined, entitled, and completely disconnected from reality. She planted a sign in my yard that read, "Community Meditation Circle, all welcome," and started unloading camping gear like she was pitching a new resort. Her dogs ran wild in my strawberry patch, and one of them actually peed on my boots. I told her she needed to leave immediately. Instead, she handed me a folded-up HOA notice, complete with sparkly font, demanding $3,000 in back dues. It was addressed to resident of the unclaimed parcel and claimed my lack of response to her communications meant I had agreed to join. When I pointed out my property wasn't part of any HOA, she smiled and said, "It's all about proximity. Spiritually, you've already joined." That's when I showed her my badge. She laughed, thought it was fake. I told her I was the actual county sheriff. She squinted at my ID and said, "Photoshop is getting scary these days." Then she accused me of illegal land hoarding and ecological non-cooperation. I honestly couldn't tell if this was a prank, a social experiment, or the beginning of some HOA-themed cult. That night, I filed everything: photos, notes, a call log, because if she kept this up, I'd need a paper trail. Sure enough, by morning, she'd built a canopy tent and set up fairy lights. A pink flag flapped where my garden hose used to be. She called it the Peace Pavilion. When I confronted her again, she told me I'd been reported for non-compliant lawn edging and aggressive fence energy. She taped another HOA violation slip to my front door. By day 3, Cheryl had brought backup. 2 HOA board members showed up: Doug, who looked like a hostage, and Sharon, who brought a clipboard and a bullhorn. They started arguing about where to put the composting station. I stood there, hands on my hips, wondering if I'd slipped into a bad sitcom. That night, she projected twinkle lights onto my barn and hosted a moonlit affirmation circle, complete with bongo drums and chai tea. I finally called in a favor to the county land office, had them rush parcel records, and gathered every legal document that proved without question that this land was mine. Meanwhile, Cheryl upped her antics. She sent mass emails claiming I had violated community harmony, posted flyers accusing me of being a fence fascist, and even installed a plastic dome camera on my shed. I asked what it was for. She said she needed proof in case I retaliated with rural militancy. Things came to a head when she rolled in a tiny home trailer and parked it squarely in my back pasture. Painted the words Phase 4, HQ, in glitter paint across the side. I was eating oatmeal while watching from the kitchen, and my deputy Carla said, "You want me to tow it? Or are we still letting her dig her own grave?" I told her. "Let her keep digging." She passed out flyers with my face edited to look like a cartoon villain, hosted a Reclaim the Lawn vigil with incense and poetry, and charged admission fees for community events. That's when Doug finally snapped. He came to me with everything private emails, financial records, Venmo receipts labeled spa therapy from HOA budget, and recordings of Cheryl directing funds toward essential aura realignment. I turned over the whole file to the county prosecutor. Within 48 hours, we had charges trespassing, document forgery, embezzlement, unauthorized occupancy. A judge signed off on a search warrant and restraining order. I didn't serve them personally. I had deputies post them on her tiny home door with official signage. When she saw the notice, she screamed loud enough to shake the pine trees. By nightfall, the trailer was gone. Doug had hired a legitimate contractor using reimbursed funds to repair my fence. The gnomes, signs, flags, and flamingos vanished. My chickens clucked freely again, no longer under surveillance, and I finally had my land back. Weeks later, I got a handwritten letter. No return address, but I knew it was her. She apologized not for what she did, but for how I misunderstood her community vision. She said nature would always find a way. At the bottom was a sketch of a butterfly perched on a fence post. I filed it under just in case. A month passed. The ground healed. I replanted my garden. The HOA board, now under Doug's leadership, sent thank you baskets. One couple who'd been fined for their gnome-shaped sprinkler gave me homemade cookies. I politely declined an invite to speak at the next meeting, and just when I thought it was over, I heard she tried starting another civic renewal collective in a nearby town. The city caught her hammering a community rebirth gate into government-owned floodplain. She was escorted off the land while reciting something about boundaries being illusions. Back at home, I installed a simple sign on my rebuilt fence, carved wood, nothing fancy. It reads, "This land is lawfully protected." One afternoon, I sat beneath an oak tree on a bench donated by the new HOA. A plaque reads, "For those who stand when others retreat." I watched the sun set over the ridge, the wind rustling through the grass like it was finally free. And for the first time in a long while, I smiled, sipped my coffee, and thought to myself, it's good to be home.